A homeless father with a 5-year-old son loses his wife, his home, and almost every dollar he has, yet still fights his way from sleeping in public bathrooms to landing a Wall Street job that will make him a millionaire. Chris Gardner is introduced as a struggling salesman whose life is full of hardship but driven by relentless effort and hope. He sells expensive medical scanners in San Francisco in 1981, drops his young son at daycare each morning, and spends his days visiting hospitals that keep telling him they do not need his device. Because the scanners rarely sell, Chris asks his wife Linda, who already works double shifts, to pick up their son, adding more pressure to their fragile situation. One night at dinner he notices a Rubik's Cube, promises the IRS more time on unpaid taxes, and casually solves the cube, hinting at his intelligence despite his financial troubles. The next day he meets a happy, well-off man with a nice car who tells Chris he is a stockbroker and that the job requires math and people skills more than formal education, which deeply impresses Chris. He wonders why everyone else seems happy and decides to apply for a stockbroker internship, even as Linda warns they are 2 months behind on rent. At the brokerage office, Chris leaves his scanner with a woman outside but sees her running away with it and fails to catch her when she escapes on a train. Later he submits his application, spots the thief again, chases her down, and recovers the device, explaining he spent his life savings on it and that losing one means losing a month's income. He gives his son a basketball for his birthday and soon after corners the firm's manager, Jay Twistle, while he is trying to get a taxi to talk about his application. They share a cab, Jay plays with a Rubik's Cube, and Chris solves it before Jay's stop, impressing him but being left to pay the fare, which he dodges by running and jumping onto a train, losing his scanner when the door closes on his hand. That same day Chris calls Linda to apologize for being late. She explodes, having missed work because of him, and declares she is leaving with their son. When Chris reaches home, he finds both gone, ending this early chapter of his struggle just as Jay calls him back, opening the door to the chance that will change his life. Chris gets a call from Jay, who asks him to write down his secretary's number so they can discuss the job, but Chris has no pen or paper and has to memorize it, rush to a nearby store, and write it down. He then runs into Linda, who has just dropped off their son and angrily tells him she is not happy with him. Chris stays calm but insists their son will live with him, and later that day he brings the boy home. Their landlord soon arrives to demand rent, and Chris begs for more time, securing a short extension in exchange for continuing to paint the apartment himself. While painting the next day, 2 police officers show up with a warrant because he has not paid a parking ticket. At the station he pays the fine but is told it will not clear until the next morning, forcing him to call Linda to pick up Christopher and leaving him stuck in a cell overnight. The following day, Chris sprints straight from the station to his Dean Witter interview, still in his paint-stained clothes, shocking the panel when he walks in. He frankly explains he was arrested the previous day for unpaid tickets, but manages to charm them with his honesty and humor. Although the manager is initially unimpressed, Chris makes them laugh, and he is offered an unpaid internship. Chris hesitates because there is no salary, but Jay urges him to take the chance. That night Linda tells him she is leaving for New York to work as a waitress. Chris agrees on the condition that their son stays with him, and she tearfully departs, trusting he will be a better caregiver. The next day he takes Christopher along to a hospital, where he finally manages to sell one of his scanners and earns a bit of money, giving them brief relief. Chris starts his internship, and on the way out one day he spots the lost scanner being carried down the street, chases after the man, is hit by a car, and realizes he has lost a shoe, forcing him to return to the office limping and half barefoot. Despite working hard and making calls, he sees little progress, so he targets the company's CEO directly. But just as he is heading out to meet him, his supervisor orders him to move his car, making Chris miss the opportunity. That evening at a diner, Chris asks his son to help him with an upcoming meeting, promising they might watch a basketball game. The next day, he visits the CEO at home, thanks him for the chance, and is invited, along with Christopher, to the game after Chris mentions their plans, giving him time to talk business. The CEO says he likes Chris's proposal and does not reject his ideas, and for a moment it seems like things are finally turning in Chris's favor. However, the IRS then withdraws money from Chris's nearly empty bank account to cover unpaid taxes, leaving him almost broke again. Desperate, he goes to collect money he had previously lent to a friend, but the friend insists he already repaid it and slams the door in Chris's face. Chris retrieves his remaining scanner and drags it from hospital to hospital, hoping to sell it, only to discover it is damaged. One hospital is willing to buy it only after repairs, leaving Chris stressed and still short on cash. There are 2 big blows when Chris and his son return home. Their landlord has put all their belongings out because the rent is unpaid, and the lock has been changed, leaving them effectively homeless with nowhere to go. With no options left, Chris takes his son to a station, holds up the scanner, and pretends it is a time machine that will send them to the age of dinosaurs, turning a brutal reality into a game so his son will not be afraid. That night they sleep in a locked public bathroom, and once Christopher is asleep, Chris silently breaks down, questioning why life has become so hard. In the morning they try a homeless shelter but are rejected because it only accepts women and children, then finally manage to secure beds at another shelter after a dispute in the line, where Chris also starts repairing the scanner. He now has to balance long lines for shelter meals and beds with studying for his crucial internship exam, using every spare moment to prepare. Outside the office one day, his manager asks to borrow money for a cab, and even though Chris is nearly broke, he still hands over a few dollars, sacrificing precious cash. To scrape together more money, he donates blood and uses the small payout to buy parts needed to fix the scanner. One night at the shelter, Christopher asks if his mother left because of him, and Chris reassures him she did not, leading the boy to say he is a good father, which gives Chris emotional strength. Chris finally repairs and sells the scanner, earning enough to move with his son from the shelter into a modest hotel room and briefly escape the streets. They even visit the beach together to breathe away from the city's cruelty. Back at Dean Witter, his supervisor later congratulates him for bringing in so many clients during the internship. On his final day, he arrives in a new shirt, joking that he dressed up because it is his last day, and the partners tell him to wear it again tomorrow, revealing he has been chosen for the one-paid stockbroker position. Holding back tears, Chris thanks them as his boss quietly returns the cab money he once borrowed, and Chris steps outside, narrating that this part of his life is called happiness, before rushing to the daycare to hug his son. An epilogue explains that he later founded his own brokerage firm and years afterward, closed a multi-million-dollar deal, showing how he turned homelessness into long-term success.